Another Christmas without Papa Donkey Kong. We're talking Donkey Kong. Hit it. It was 1981. The USSR launched the Venera 13 spacecraft. Anti-nuclear protesters invaded the Diablo Canyon nuclear reactor in California. Olivia Newton-John got physical, and an arcade mega hit starring a plumber and a gorilla took the world by storm. I'm your host, Jerry D, with another episode of Totally Rad Christmas, the podcast that talks all things Christmas in the 80s. Toys, movies, specials, music, and fads. If it was gnarly during Christmas in the 80s, we got it covered. Now, joining me are two Totally Rad Christmas All-Stars. My first guest, you'll remember when we talked Pac-Man from Lost Christmas, it's Jeff Lofton. Jeff, what's happening?
Hey, happy to be here, Jerry.
And I'm glad you're here too, because I know you have a wicked arcade. So
I do. Yeah, I have a home arcade I'm super proud of, and I'm super psyched to talk Donkey Kong.
Heck yeah, I'm excited, man. But before we do that, let's go ahead and introduce my second All-Star. You'll remember him from when we dived into Gremlins, Batman, wrestling, and the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. From Feliz Christmas, Merry Navidad, it's Manny Torres. Manny, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How about you guys?
You know, it's a little windy, but I'm okay.
Oh, that's great.
So, okay, we're here to talk Donkey Kong, and this is a game that I used to love as a kid. But what about y'all? Like, what do you remember about Donkey Kong? Like, what's your experience or your history? Why don't we start with you, Jeff?
So Donkey Kong was the game where it always seemed so simple. The concept is so simple. You try and climb to the top of the tower, or in the case of Donkey Kong Jr., trying to get to the top of the jungle.
Right.
Right. But it was so freaking hard. Like for me, I guess it was just as a kid, like wasted so many quarters. And it was usually at skate night is when I would normally play this, or at the arcade at the mall when we would go on the weekend. But I always love it. I still have nostalgia for all the different iterations of Donkey Kong. So it's also my favorite, Donkey Kong Jr. at least, because it's the only game with Mario as the villain ever.
Yes, which I remember vividly, like Mario being, the main antagonist, and just like not being able to wrap my brain around it because you were Mario in the first one, and I was this little punk kid like trying to play, like, but why is Mario the bad guy?
Right.
Well, in this case, he was Jumpman back then.
He was, yeah.
Jumpman. He wasn't Mario yet.
How he started, right?
That's right.
Right, named after Mario Segale, who was the landlord of Nintendo of America. And when they couldn't quite pay their bills on time, they were able to give him a credit, and that kind of placated him for a bit. So
that's right. And we're going to get into the naming of how it became Donkey Kong too. You want to go through that?
Well, there's a few urban legends, and apparently no one's really sure which one it is, although there are some various theories, and Miyamoto himself kind of came out and remembered it one way, but who knows? At this point, it could be it's as history talks. But so let's go back first and talk about Nintendo of America. So it's a subsidiary of Nintendo, formed in 1980, and they released a game that really kind of bombed called Radar Scope. It tested ridiculously poor. And so the head of Nintendo thought, well, maybe if we just swap out, some of the guts, we can keep the cabinet and rework this game into something where we don't lose our shirts. And so he commissioned Shigeru Miyamoto to develop the concept, and this is how Donkey Kong came about. And at the time, they were also trying to get licensing to a Popeye game. When the license fell through, they just reworked these characters, and so Bluto became Donkey Kong.
Sure.
Of course, Popeye became Mario, and Olive Oil became Pauline, Mario's first girlfriend. I'm sorry, Princess Peach, but we got to talk about it.
I mean, he moved on.
This, yep. You gotta keep going, right?
Yeah, he moved up in scale from chasing a large gorilla to a lizard thing.
Whatever that thing is, right?
Yeah, whatever. He's a Koopa of some kind, whatever that is. Yeah.
Yeah. He's like a dragon
Turtle, which is kind of cool, but but kind of not. Yeah.
Which, as an aside, how jazzed are you for the Mario movie coming out?
Less jazzed after hearing the accent, but the movie. I mean, I'm a Nintendo fan, so I'll go see it regardless. It doesn't matter how terrible it is.
But you heard they did test screening and audio with the other guy. I forgot his name, and I think the person that lasted the longest was about 11 minutes. So imagine an hour and a half movie with driving people crazy. It's Mario. It's me.
Yeah, I guess that's fair.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm just so used to video game voice Mario now that anything else, or Captain Lou, from Super Mario Brothers Super Show, which I again was another one that I really loved. So I think I could have gone either way. Of course, Captain Lou couldn't do it now, but Chris Pratt was definitely an odd choice. But as far as Bowser goes, I think I'm okay with Jack Black's voice.
Yeah, I've thought that they could have done a voiceover rather than having Mario speak. Just make it like the game where he doesn't really talk. Kind of like if you do a Zelda movie, you don't need to hear Link actually talk. Yeah, you just need the voiceover. If you give me the voiceover, then they can narrate everything anyway.
That's true. So, yeah, that's a good point.
But hey, this is one route, so I'll reserve my judgment.
I liked the trailer. You're right. Mario's voice was a little wonky, but I dug the trailer. And I know, like I said, we're going off topic and I apologize, but I really enjoyed, I guess, the kind of comedy. I know it's a little more kiddie, but I know my kids are going to love it. So if they love it, then generally I tend to like it a little bit more, seeing the huge smiles on their face. So I'm okay with it being a little more kiddie for now. Yes, I'm a little concerned about Mario's voice, but I'm sure we'll kind of grow into it. So we'll see what happens. But
yeah, it'll be fine.
But it does kind of make me excited for a possible Donkey Kong movie because I would like to see Donkey Kong show up in some of these.
Agree.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
Yeah. So anyway, they reworked the game. They even came up with some various concept art. And so Donkey Kong was born. Now, the name Donkey Kong could refer to a lot of things.
Sure.
Some people say that they just randomly picked the word donkey out of a English Japanese dictionary because it kind of means ridiculous or something silly. So that's one story. And then Kong, just because of his association, he's a gorilla, his association with King Kong. Apparently Kong is a very common word in Japan for monkey or gorilla in general. I don't know if that's true, but that's what I read. So
sure, we'll buy it.
Yeah. Never having been to Japan, for me, that scans.
Yeah, I'll give it a pass.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. No one seems to really know. So the word donkey also kind of refers to maybe stupid and goofy. So it could be that it was just another way of saying like silly monkey or silly Kong, essentially. Mm-hmm. And then in 2001, Miyamoto himself actually stated that he thought the name would kind of convey stupid ape. And that's kind of how he picked that name. But I don't know. Have you heard anything about this other than that? Because that's kind of where I read.
Yeah. So, there was the lawsuit with what was it, Universal about King Kong. There was the lawsuit in the 80s about this. But I think obviously there was like no real resolution. Universal didn't really win anything from that. But
right.
I think it's probably one of those things where there wasn't really a lot of documentation on it anyway. So whoever might have known, like they were like, oh, here, just change the name, just scrub it and write something else. I think that's probably what happened. So they probably did just grab that dictionary and were like, oh, what's the name for stupid? Right. So,
It probably is the most believable. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like in Ghostbusters when they filmed, they would film everything twice. And so they would film it using the name Ghostbusters, and then they would film it using, I think it was Ghost Breakers or something like that. Ghost Beaters. It was something just in case they couldn't get the rights to that name Ghostbusters, since it had previously been used in the mid 70s by what was it? some sort of, I don't know, show or something. There was a few episodes of a show, and so Ghostbusters was kind of technically taken.
Wow.
So yeah. So I kind of get the feeling it was like that. What if they had the name and then they're like, okay, let's change this really quickly.
Right. Yeah. I think that's totally vibe, especially having read Console Wars. I'm not sure if you guys have read that, but it talks about how like flying by the seat of their pants they were in the 70s and 80s. So like, just like, oh no, get out the duct tape. Let's just cover this up.
No, I mean, I completely believe it. So I've never read it. I've seen several adaptations or loose adaptations or something similar in
Sure.
style, to it. But it is very exciting to think about those early days of like Atari and Coleco and all those just trying to make their name known, Nintendo,
Yep.
and then where we've gone since then, when Sega came around and some of the tactics they would use to try to win and beat. This
Love
is
it.
just crazy because at the time, of course, Nintendo had a monopoly, in the late 80s, early 90s. They
Oh,
really,
for
really
sure.
dominated everything. And so when Sega was trying to break through, Nintendo usually had a lot of a pull, and they would kind of strong on their way into like making Walmarts and Toys R Us not carry any of
Yeah.
these Genesis things. So, seeing all that stuff, it really makes me wonder about what really happened at some of these others.
Oh yeah. What backroom deals were going on, and
Exactly.
yeah, what shenanigans happened.
Make him an offer he can't refuse.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, so Donkey Kong was released. First, they did a limited test run in a few bars, and and they went really well. And then they started selling them, and it was a huge hit. And I don't blame them. It really is a fun game.
It is.
You're this plumber that like moves up levels, and there's these barrels and weapons that you can use. And yes, I know Pixels gets a lot of hate because it's not a very good movie, but you know what? I really enjoyed that Donkey Kong scene.
Right. Yeah. So the thing about Donkey Kong is it's easy to understand, right?
Mhm.
You try and you move left, right, and vertically. It's
Right,
very straightforward. So the concept was not difficult. It wasn't super fast paced either. It's
right,
super easy to understand, and that's why it appealed to a wide variety of people. Like you
right.
walk up and it's got the demo playing. It's on loop and it shows you kind of what you're supposed to do, and you're like, oh, I can do that. And then 6 seconds later, when you're already out of your first quarter, you're like, oh, wait, I can do that. I got this.
Hey, and that's when you actually learn the true meaning of stick drift.
Right. Exactly.
It's not a new thing. That comes from way before, because I had spirits at the pizza place by my uncle's
Mm-hmm.
Oh
store.
yeah.
Oh man. When you're moving one way, he go, oh no, you have to actually learn, if it was backwards of,
Hmm.
a bad setting or whatever out of nowhere. But
Yep.
No, the worst was like when it was at a pizza place because the handle would be all greasy,
Yes,
the
exactly.
joystick. And so
oh,
sometimes
that
you'd kind of
explains it, the
slip and
grease.
yeah, just yeah, the controls just it's awful.
Sure. And if you retrofit, like, so some places they would retrofit
Mhm.
arcade joysticks, and if you had an 8-way and you put it into a 4-way or vice versa,
Oh,
it really
right.
changes the dynamics of how a joystick works. So I can say that because I have to go underneath my arcade at home when I'm
Hmm.
going to play Pac-Man. I need to go and put it into a 4-way so that it doesn't, just because it functions completely differently.
Right, right. So playing Pac-Man or Donkey Kong
Yep.
compared to playing like Street Fighter.
Exactly. Very different dynamics
Hmm.
from a movement perspective.
Well, and speaking of the game physics themselves are actually not too bad. So
No.
there's a lot of variation in video game cartridge physics. So like you're talking about the way you jump in Mega Man versus the way you jump in Mario. There's like completely different gravity settings. There's sometimes you can go really, really high just depending on how you actually do it. In some games, if you hold the button down even more, then you can jump higher or double jump. And so there's a lot of
Yep.
variation, but this was pretty straightforward. And so again, I think you're right. It appealed to a lot more players, people like from our age all the way up to, 20s and 30-year-olds that I remember seeing at the arcade, because that's where
Yep.
I played it as well, as
Yeah.
first, was in the arcade in the mall. I remember it was the arcade in the mall, which I cannot remember the name of it to save my life, but
I
it
feel
was
like they all
cool.
had the same name, but
Like
it was
Tilt or
written in
something.
neon. Yeah,
Yes,
exactly. Yeah.
exactly. Like
Yeah.
cursive neon. Yeah,
And there was some guy with a mullet and like a really gross mustache that worked there at the
yeah.
front
Yes.
desk. I think it was the same guy at every arcade. I don't know how he worked at every one of them, but
It's a clone.
exactly. Yeah.
It's came with the package deal when you bought into the the franchise or something.
Yep.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I know what you mean. It always seemed to be the same, or the teenager that, with the acne, something like that,
Yep.
but they were always there. And I remember the colors, I remember the lights and everything. I even remember the smells from when like you walked in, because it always had like a certain scent.
Yeah.
But
It was.
Didn't it have like a wet rug scent?
Yes.
I think that's it. Yeah. I think that's exactly it.
Yep. And cheap teenage cologne sometimes.
Yes, I do
And
remember
like
that.
way too much, but it didn't ever cover the like dankness that that was in there.
That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah. It was just
Yeah.
because it was inevitably tucked away in a corner somewhere, which probably had a leak. And so there was,
Right.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, and Donkey Kong, I remember Pac-Man was another really popular one. Mrs.
Yep.
Pac-Man later on, of course. Tron, I don't know if you remember the Tron
I
game.
do.
There was one Star Wars Arcade, the Star Wars game, where you're actually in the X-Wing and you're flying. That one was really cool. I mean, there's a bunch of these games, but Donkey Kong was, to me at least, as a kid, was the easiest, because Pac-Man was, for some reason, and don't get me wrong, Donkey Kong was ridiculously hard to me, but it was a lot easier than when I would play Pac-Man or when I would play some of these others.
I
Because
agree.
with the ghosts chasing you, you make one wrong turn and like that's it. You're
Yeah.
stuck. And with Donkey Kong, you could at least jump or kind of go back if you needed to a little bit. So
Yeah.
there was a little more leeway than getting stuck in a corner between two ghosts.
Exactly. Well, and the ghosts moved left, right, and up, down, and
Right.
for the most part, the enemies, as you call them in Donkey Kong, they pretty much have one motion pattern, right? They're very
Right.
predictable in how they move.
Right.
But the ghosts, they could keep moving around in different directions. So it was like that. You had to watch more things. So
Right.
it was easier to focus, I thought.
It was, especially for 5-year-old me. Yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't quite handle it. So
Exactly.
But so the game did really, really well. So well that some of the levels and things that they just couldn't fit because of hardware limitations, software limitations, that they decided to make a part 2. And this became Donkey Kong Jr. And like you said, Mario is the antagonist.
It's me, Mario.
Because he's captured Donkey Kong, and
Yep.
Donkey Kong's son, Donkey Kong Jr., is the one that has to go rescue him, save his dad. And it kind of course, is very, very similar. It kind of ends the same, where at the end, there's like a big, essentially cave-in, and Donkey Kong and Donkey Kong Jr. escape.
Yep.
So, and that brings us to part 3, which came out in 83. So Donkey Kong 81, Junior in 82, Donkey Kong 3 in 83. And there's a whole new protagonist, I believe, for that one. It's like I think he's a exterminator.
Sure. Yeah, they decided to rip Mario out, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know why, but yeah,
Hey,
yeah,
whatever. Yeah,
it's cool. And again, pretty much same mechanics, but new enemies, and you kind of have to like spray the plants or something. It was interesting.
More colors and
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But then it kind of was dormant for a long time. And we didn't really get any. I mean, we got a few things here and there with, like, in 86, there was a few releases of the arcades on NES, things like that. But it wasn't until 1994 where we get Donkey Kong Country.
Oh, that's my jam right there. The Super
Donkey Kong
Nintendo.
Country is awesome.
It's so great. That whole series is phenomenal.
It really is, yeah.
The hand-drawn graphics, they're so great. It's just a fun game to play.
Mhm.
So much fun.
And it was so they kind of were experimenting with the pre-rendered graphics.
Mhm.
And so they were able to essentially make it look 3D, which was new. I mean, up till then, yes, they had 16-bit, but it was still just kind of an approximation. The way that they had these pre-rendered graphics, it really looked,
great.
It was amazing. I remember the guys from Sega being pretty scared And so they kind of came out with Vector Man in response, and it just
Yep.
wasn't the same. It just wasn't Donkey
No,
Kong.
it wasn't. And honestly, the Donkey Kong Country games still look great today. Like if
They
you
do,
fire
yeah.
up a Super Nintendo, it looks really good. Now, obviously, it would look better on a CRT TV than it would be on like your
Right.
your new high definition TV. But that's the joy of like a hand drawn graphic. Those pre rendered graphics,
Right.
they hold up a little bit better than
They do.
pixelated stuff. So.
Oh, I completely agree. And my wife still does have her old Super Nintendo, so every once in a while we boot it up and we play some games. And
I'll
of
reach
course,
and grab mine in just a minute. I've got mine over here too.
oh, nice.
Yeah.
So of course we have Donkey
Now I'm
Kong.
jealous.
Yeah, and Mario Kart. But yeah, Donkey Kong Country was it was so fun.
So great.
The villains were a whole new like species that were created for a different game and then
Yeah.
were unused and kind of just ported into this particular one. But it's just fun. They introduced Diddy Kong and they kind of retconned so that this Donkey Kong is actually the grandson of the original Donkey Kong, who is now Cranky Kong, which
Yeah,
is something that I remember like just when I read that, just
Yeah, they built a timeline, which was kind of nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Got this whole generational thing going with Donkey Kong.
Yes, and I'm a sucker for mythologies and world building and things like that.
Yeah.
So
it doesn't have to be well constructed. It just needs to
Exactly.
exist. Yeah.
Exactly. As long as it's there, I'm all in. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
And so I remember thinking like, wow, this is cool. Although at the time I wasn't sure how Mario kind of fit in. And so I did a little research, and so the average lifespan of a gorilla in the wild is about 35 years. So Mario still could be around and kicking, if depending on how old he was when he had to rescue his girlfriend. But a lot of those problems are solved when in Yoshi's Island, I think part 2, where they introduced time travel. And
that's right. That's the baby one, right?
The baby one, yes.
Yeah.
So apparently we can kind of figure it all out and just put it down as time travel shenanigans, and we're all right.
There you go. Yeah, they went the heroes route and just decided to throw in time travel just to mess with it. Yeah,
it's easy. It gets you out of any kind of mess. So.
You just hand wave, and it's like, time travel. It's fine. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense. Yeah. No one questions it because no one really understands time travel.
That's exactly right.
Great Scott! But in Donkey Kong Country, they introduced Diddy Kong, who originally was going to star as Donkey Kong Jr., and when his redesign was just too far afield from the original Donkey Kong Jr.'s design, they decided to just create a new character after being told either create a new character or change it. So, and that tends to do it, either.
Most definitely.
But so they created Donkey Kong's nephew. So I guess technically he is the great-grand nephew of the original Donkey Kong, who is Cranky Kong.
Sure.
Okay, so I'm working it all out, trying to get it all straightened out. But they've expanded the universe. They've expanded the line. So there's Donkey Kong's wife is named Cranky Kong's wife, the original Donkey Kong, is Wrinkly Kong.
Boy, she got shafted with the name, didn't she?
Yes. Yes, that's
goodness.
A terrible, terrible name.
That is, that's rough.
There's Funky Kong. There's Dixie Kong. There's Candy Kong, who's Donkey Kong's girlfriend. So there's all sorts of just a Kong family living on this island here.
Sure.
I guess they're all related because they're all Kongs, I guess.
Unless we
it's a shallow gene pool, okay? We're just gonna got limited options. It's fine. We're just gonna
don't go diving in. Yeah,
that's right. It's like the Lion King. You don't really want to dig deep into who everybody's related to because it's not worth it.
Swanky Kong was another one. Kitty Kong, who was known as Dinky Kong in Japan. I mean, there's all sorts of Kongs here. I'm gonna just pretend like Kong is just the generic name for monkey and not necessarily, a surname. And
exactly.
I think it might make things work out a little bit better.
Or it's just the most common last name, right?
That's right. That's right.
It's like.
That's right. It's just like Smith or Jones or something.
Or maybe like humans can't pronounce the nuance in the last name. And so we all just kind of mispronounce it as Kong, but there's like 36 different like versions and we just don't get it.
I like that. Yeah. Or they're all shortened. So there's like Kongstein and Kongberg. And,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I gotcha. Uh, but there is a Christmas connection to all this Donkey Kongness, and I want to talk more about the games. But before we do that, I want to talk about some of the Christmas connections. So, when Nintendo of America was licensing out, or when they were trying to license out Donkey Kong for home console release, they on December 24th, 1981, they signed the deal with Coleco to produce the home console version of it. And then also as because once you get famous you got to have your own cartoon, especially in the 80s.
That was it.
That's how you did it in the 80s. They created the Saturday Supercade and they licensed out Donkey Kong and some of the other games. So we had Frogger, we had Pitfall was one of them, Q*bert was in there, and we had Donkey Kong and Donkey Kong Jr. as these different cartoons. And while many of these episodes are lost just because they weren't kept around, there are several that are just lost, and no one knows. There's no copies existent anymore, which is such a shame.
It is a shame.
But there was on, let's see, I think it was November 19th, 1983. And we got A Christmas Story, which was the 10th episode of the first season of Donkey Kong Jr. Now, before that particular episode, we had, I want to get this right here. Let me make sure I get it in my notes. But we actually had that airing right before, because the Saturday Supercade was basically an hour-long block with 3 to 4 different cartoons that would run during that hour long, and they were all based on these. Now, before that particular episode, they actually had an episode of Donkey Kong, so not Junior, but actual Donkey Kong, that I think wasn't Christmassy, but was wintry. And I just can't, no one seems to know anything about it. It was gone. It's called Apey and the Snow Beast. So it sounds wintry, but it's another one of those lost episodes that no one's ever found.
Well, I task you with finding it, Jerry. Do it.
I've been trying.
Pick it up.
Like my Google Foo is pretty good, but I just cannot.
It's probably sitting on some shelf on somebody's dusty VHS that they recorded it on in 1983.
It's in a box.
They've just got hundreds of them, like just stacked somewhere.
Well, and that's how a lot of these have made it onto YouTube and various other programs. So the original, like, first airing of the Saturday Supercade has now made it online.
Well, Saturday Supercade, gather round, we'll get your video friends together. Yes, Saturday Supercade is time for fun, and no one else can do it better. And it feels so right, because it's Supercade time. Let's have some Supercade fun. Yes, it's Supercade time. Let's have some Supercade fun.
But there's just a ton of these episodes that no one has. And so luckily, several of the Q*berts have been out there. Several of these DK Juniors and DKs are out there. But there's just a lot that are lost.
Here's what's going to happen. Somebody from Nintendo is going to hear this episode. I kid you not.
I think you give me way too much credit.
No. They're going to let it play it out, a year or two or whatever. And next thing you know, everything that you're saying is, they're going to come out, out of the vault with all these things and make a big ton of money from it.
It's going to be part of Nintendo Switch Online. They're going to charge you extra for it.
Oh, yeah.
It's like terrible 10-minute episodes.
$49.99.
That's right.
Hey, don't be surprised when that happens.
I won't be surprised if they try and charge for anything, Manny. Yeah.
They'll probably even charge you for speaking about that. Oh, no, he stole our plans before.
I know. I'm scared to insert clips now.
Right? Yeah.
But so Ruby Spears was the one that actually created this cartoon. Ruby Spears, of course, a famous offshoot of Hanna-Barbera.
Yep.
And we get Frank Welker, one of the giants in voiceover and cartoon work. I mean, if there's a cartoon animal out there, it's either done by Don Messick or Frank Welker.
If it's of any value.
Exactly. Yeah. If it's good. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you're right. Good point.
Yeah.
Of course, Frank Welker, also famous for, I think his most famous role is probably Fred from Scooby-Doo. But he's done a bunch of other things, Megatron, just random everything.
That's right.
Yeah, he's voiceover royalty. So when I heard that Frank Welker was doing the voice, I thought, all right, I can't wait. And sure enough, you can tell it's a Frank Welker voice. Yeah,
yep. Most definitely.
Yeah. But let's dive into this episode real quick because I'm excited to talk more about the games. So
let's get this episode going. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So it was just a real short, like 11-minute thing, and it starts off with Donkey Kong Jr. carrying his buddy Bones, who is kind of his, his road pal. It's so essentially the whole premise. Let me start there. The premise of the show is that Donkey Kong Jr. and his buddy Bones are looking for his dad.
Yep.
Donkey Kong. He's escaped. Mario has kind of had him contained so he couldn't cause more mischief. He's escaped, and now Donkey Kong Jr. is looking for his father. And this is where the episode begins, where their motorcycle has broken down, and Jr. is carrying Bones on the motorcycle through the snow in one hand using his monkey muscles.
And my favorite is right at the very beginning, Jerry. He says, "Oh, look, a city," and they're in the city. like you didn't see it on the horizon. Like you suddenly show up and you're a block away from the first store. Oh, okay.
But it seems he's been looking for his father for quite a while because he says another Christmas without my dad. So
he does say that, another Christmas without my dad. That's crazy.
Mario was, eesh.
Yeah, he was rough.
So this definitely takes place after part 2.
Yes.
But so they're trying to see if they can find someone to fix their motorcycle, and they pass this mom and the kid who's like, hey, you need to go check out Mr. Anderson because he can fix anything. He can even make toys, which that's right. A random tidbit.
Hey,
but
thanks. Yeah.
Yeah, but we have toddlers, so we understand they throw in random tidbits.
That's right. Motorcycles, toys, it's the same thing.
It's all the same thing.
When I need toys, I go to a mechanic, right? I mean, what better for my kids to play with than power tools, right?
That's right. Black & Decker, right?
That's right. Heavy machinery. It's perfect for toddlers.
So they go to Mr. Anderson. Meanwhile, there's some, and I'm only going to use this word because they say it later on. I don't like to use this word, but they see some hobos that are just hanging around. And these bums, I guess, or hobos, they overhear the child saying this to Junior, and so they say, "Did you hear that? I got an idea. Let's go check this out and see if it's worth it."
That's where Mr. Anderson lives, Mom. He's Santa's helper.
Excuse me, ma'am. Do you know who can fix our motorcycle?
Ask Mr. Anderson. He can fix anything. And Mr. Anderson has this magic machine that makes toys.
Did you hear that, Waldo?
This I gotta see.
So Junior and Bones are there with Mr. Anderson, and they're trying out his magic machine that does not look like it belongs in the 80s at all. It's
nope.
It's very steampunk, right?
It is.
It kind of has a steampunk vibe. It's just this little portable, I don't know, maybe about radio size, not like boombox 80s,
like a toaster oven.
Yeah,
it's an artifact from the North Pole,
Well, maybe he is Santa's helper, so you never know.
Mm-hmm.
But he says he's Santa's helper, and so they try it out. As they name an object, they press a button, and it comes out of the machine. So they make tin soldiers, airplanes come out. But Waldo, who is the larger, more Fred Flintstone looking of the two, steals the machine and runs away, and that's where the plot kind of really takes off.
So, small point of order. Just definitionally, a hobo is like Jack Reacher, who does not have a home but is willing to work. So these guys are not hobos.
Oh, okay. So
they call themselves hobos, but they're not hobos. Yeah, they're more like, I guess I think like the dictionary definition, they would actually be like vagrants or bums possibly, because they don't seem to want to work or travel. Because at least if you travel, there's like a different definition if you're like hopping trains and stuff. These guys just like want to lay around town and not do anything. So
well, I don't know. Later on, they do say that they'll open up their own store, right?
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay.
So I guess technically they're hobos, but maybe not.
Yeah,
No.
They're aspiring hobos, right?
I like aspirational hobos.
They have goals.
Hey, Jerry, you should put a shirt with that thing.
I was going to say, I think I just got a new T-shirt. That's a T-shirt idea.
Yeah.
With the toy machine.
Right.
Oh man. So they swipe the machine, and of course Junior and Bones go after them, and we get a bunch of just nonsensical, just weird happenings. So my favorite part, as they're running away, Junior, he karate chops like a fence, these fence posts, and he cuts these posts in half. And so now this fence is just structurally unsound in this one spot.
Yep.
And he uses those posts as skis, and they proceed to ski downhill faster than the car can drive. So I'm assuming maybe they just don't have snow chains or tire chains, and they're.
I would think that might actually make them go faster downhill anyway, right?
Well,
because you're just sliding
true.
on the ice.
That's true. Yeah.
Apparently, they have negative friction at that point, and just
oh, no.
soaring. Yeah. So good.
But even so, Junior and Bones out ski them.
That's right. They make it very quickly.
So they get ahead of the thieves, and Bones, meanwhile, as he's skiing down, he runs into a snowman. And so he gets that classic cartoon trope of he essentially becomes what he runs into. And so he's covered in snow with the top hat and the broom, and it gives Junior an idea, and he karate chops a tree, which luckily is completely hollow.
Very fortunate.
Yes. Yep.
Also very sad for the tree that it was completely hollow, but
I really wondered what happened to that tree. Like
perhaps it's the runoff from that magic machine that they had, right? There's so much to call the EPA, have them investigate a little bit out there, because that's dangerous.
Well, what is it? Matter cannot be created or right? It's just
transformed. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So maybe they're taking parts of that tree somehow.
That's exactly right. It's taking natural matter from somewhere else and transforming it.
Yeah, transmuting the innards of the tree.
I love how you've made this super dark, Jerry. That's it.
I think we did that with Pac-Man last time.
We did, yeah. Unfortunately,
cannibalism.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm sensing a theme here. Okay, so luckily the tree is hollow. He chops it down, and this giant now log is blocking the road, and so of course they're able to stop. Luckily, the aspirational hobos see it in time and are able to slow down.
Yep.
And not run into it.
Just in time,
where they decide to get down, and to their great misfortune, they see these two snowmen who happen to just be Donkey Kong Jr. and Bones in disguise. Right. It's that classic bit where, someone looks back behind them and the thing's not moving anymore, and as soon as they turn around, it's moving again.
Snowman Bones reporting for duty. That's it. Your snowman suit gives me an idea. No! Look out for that log!
Okay, Bert.
I think this snowman's alive.
Snowman ain't real.
This one is, and so is this one. Surprised you, didn't we? Hey, what a sound!
Well, the snowmen move, and then sure enough, they use their brooms and they whack them, and somehow they have these just perfect aim, and they're able to jam them into this log.
And those are some sturdy brooms, by the way. I don't know if you ever tried to hit anything like substantial with a broom, but it doesn't work very well.
Well, not that. I guess it's sturdy, but not super sturdy, because Bones decides to lean up on his broom, and it bends like when you're squeezing a toothpick or something.
That's right. It bows out. Yeah.
And sure enough, he launches underneath Donkey Kong Jr., who had been holding this log, and dislodges him, like Atlas style.
Yeah.
And the villains escape and make their way down the road. So now at this point, Junior has to save Bones. They leave, and as they head further into the town, they discover the car of the thieves or villains or whatever we want to call them right now.
Yep.
So the knaves. Ooh, I like that.
Knaves. There we go.
Knaves. I did like how a lot of the shops in this town were decorated with garland, just lots of hanging garland. It was very Christmassy. The score actually was playing Jingle Bells.
Yeah, it was very festive. They did a good job with them. I mean, for
the time, yeah.
What it was. Yeah, I mean, let's not give it too much credit.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
The color palette was also made me super nostalgic. It was very those muted kind of tones, and I
Yep.
don't know how much of that was the transfer and how much of that was, deterioration of the original. But I got a lot of feels from that just watching it again.
Yeah, it had me sitting far too close to our 13-inch TV back when I was growing up. On Saturday mornings. That's what it reminded me of.
13-inch. I remember having
Yep.
and thinking it was the best thing ever.
It was the best, man.
Yep.
And you'd switch between the UHF and whatever. Yeah. So just go back and forth because you had cartoons on for like 3 hours a week. That was it.
So they spot the thieves' truck and they follow him into a store where they're trying to sell this machine to a toy store
on Christmas Eve.
On Christmas Eve. And of course, the thieves can't get it to work correctly. There's a lot of that generic, random breaking machinery sounds and sound effects that I loved.
And springs, lots of springs. There's always this spring sound.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it looked like it was going to blow up too. So
it did look like it was going to blow up. There was smoke and I think lights and stuff like that going on. It doesn't work. The guy's going to throw them out. As they're on their way out, Bones somehow found a Santa costume and decided to dress up. And he has Junior in his sack. I love how the kids, there's like these two random kids see him and are like, hey,
unaccompanied
Santa.
minors in a store late on Christmas Eve.
Hey, it was the 80s.
Right. That's a valid point. Right. I mean,
anything happened back then.
That's true.
I remember, in fact, I was just talking about this on my mask episode with some other guys, how when we'd go to the grocery store and like mom and dad would just go get groceries and we would just, be in like the magazine and comic book aisle, you know, and the spinner rack and all that, or same thing at the mall. We just go to the arcade while mom and dad went around shopping.
Yep.
I mean,
or B. Dalton Books. I'd go to the bookstore and check out the comic books, right?
Walden Books was another one. Yeah.
Yeah. Good times.
Yeah. So I get that these kids maybe could be unaccompanied.
That's that. Yeah. That's, I forget. It terrifies me to think of my children being unaccompanied but 30 years ago, 40 years ago. Oh God, that was 40 years ago now.
Oh Lord, I just felt.
Don't say that. Yeah.
Oh.
Don't say that.
I mean, it was yesterday.
There you go.
Yesterday. Yeah.
That's all right. It is 40 years ago, but that's okay. The girl asks for a dolly and a teddy bear and a horsey, and Bones tells her that Santa will give her all her gifts on Christmas morn, which, I mean, that's over-promising quite a bit.
Right? Yeah. Setting those standards pretty high, Bones.
but as the guys are walking by, he grabs Bert, who's the thinner of the two, and he puts him on his lap.
He sure did.
Like, whoa, man. Okay. That's a little edgy there, but he grabs him and he starts asking him what he wants for Christmas. And he's like, I don't need anything. We have this machine. But he says, well, you don't have one of these. And he brings out Junior, who is pretending to be like one of those toys, monkeys with the drum.
That's right. Yeah.
And of course, he slams the drum onto his head. Bones takes his Santa hat and pulls it down over Waldo's head to get it, to get the machine. But as Bert actually falls into a big old box that Junior then wraps, we get Bones accidentally falling into the box instead of Waldo.
Of course.
Because why not? That's,
because
this needs to be 11 minutes.
Yep, exactly. Yeah.
Because that would have been a perfect place to end it. But no, Waldo misses and Bones falls in, and then Junior accidentally wraps Bones.
That's right.
So Waldo takes the time to escape, and they hide in some trash cans, and then they do something that would land you in jail for at least 25 years. They go to a little girl's window and start asking her for money.
That's right.
Hello, little girl. You want to buy a nice teddy bear?
Sure.
And she's all into it too. She's like, all right, let's, I'd like a teddy bear. Let's do this.
Right.
And of course they can't seem to get it to work, but I was flummoxed at what they did with that there. I mean, again, I know it was a different time, it was the 80s, but still, like, that's just creepy.
It's not like they didn't have issues in the 80s either, right? So.
Well, that's true. Yeah. But I like how, in order to find where the thieves have gone, Junior and Bones climb up into like the big town square Christmas tree.
Yep. And then look down.
It's a huge tree, has to be at least 20 feet, if not more. And they're looking down, they see them, and they grab some ornaments and they slide down the telephone pole.
Yep.
Which, oh, man.
Because cartoons. I mean, that's no more outlandish than anything you see now. So.
Well, that's true. I suppose my kids do watch Paw Patrol, and there's some funny stuff there.
Yeah, my kids love Paw Patrol. So
that and Bluey. I do like Bluey.
Don't get me started on Bluey. let's not get into Bluey today, Jerry.
There's actually an 80s episode of Bluey. Have you seen that one? It's from season 3.
I have not.
So
I'll text you when I do.
Okay. It's decent. It's like episode 25 or 26 in season 3, something like that. But anyway, that's the one episode that I can handle. But anyway, so they slide down and they confront the thieves on the roof. Yep. And as they're like backing up, trying to create something, they keep pressing the buttons and they fall off the building's roof.
They time stopped apparently.
Well,
I love this.
Yes, it takes it's either a really, really, really tall building or Junior has just phenomenal reflexes because he's able to grab
abilities.
He's able to grab a wreath, which has to be at least a 48-inch wreath to get one man. So imagine trying to fit 2 men. But he grabs some wire from somewhere and the wreath, and he like throws it down and lassos the thieves, luckily.
Yep. Before they hit the ground.
Yes. I don't know how, but he saves their lives. And
he did.
So
and yeah.
And the machine. He saves the machine.
Oh, he was able to do that butt slide, all the way down.
That's right.
That's true. That's true. Bones, slides down the fire escape.
That's right.
And anyway, so they go to Mr. Anderson. They help him wrap presents and get everything ready. And in the end, it turns out he really is Santa's helper because at midnight, Santa comes to collect all these extra presents that he just didn't have time to make.
Midnight, right on schedule. Is it really him?
Who cares? When I was a kid, he never brought me the fire engine I wanted.
It is him, and he left these behind.
From me? Gee, just the one I always wanted. On Donna, on Blitzen, on Dasher and Prancer.
Gosh, Junior, that's Santa Claus. And Mr. Anderson really is Santa's helper.
Which raises so many questions, but nonetheless.
But answers others' questions. Because here's the thing. I mean, people always wonder, like, how much toys does he fit from the North Pole? So maybe he has all these helpers,
helpers along the way.
Yeah, exactly. He picks that up. So that makes more sense, than, what is it, bottomless sack or whatever. So
it would be a bag of holding from D&D lore, but sure, we'll go with that. Yeah,
or Hermione's bag from Harry Potter. Yeah,
that's right. Bag of recall, whatever it is. But yeah, then that's a good point, Manny. If he has these strategically placed, right?
Yeah,
then it raises some eyebrows, but then
And maybe that temporal shift we had waiting for Donkey Kong Jr. to lasso those guys. Maybe that was like Santa's impending arrival.
Maybe that was Santa,
right?
Yeah.
Caused a blip in time, so it slowed down.
Yeah, that scene was like 20% of that episode. So,
did you ever see the movie Trancers?
Oh,
with Tim Thomerson. So
long time ago. Yeah,
he has a watch that gives him a long second. So like 1 second is actually like 10 seconds or something like that. So I'm wondering if that's what happened. Maybe Junior has one of those watches and he pressed it and he has a long second.
There you go. Okay.
I don't know. Or time travel.
Or magic. Right? Or Christmas magic. It was a Christmas miracle, right?
Hey, he has a lot of abilities, man. That's why he's not in the video games now, Be too easy to win with him.
Well, he does make a couple of appearances here and there, but it's very, very random in the games. It's not like Diddy Kong who's in everything or Donkey Kong who's in everything. It's much more sporadic. I think there's only like 2 or 3 other appearances since his creation.
He's the prodigal son. He goes away for long periods.
Hey, I have Diddy, this is Diddy Kong right here on the top of my tree.
Oh, okay, nice.
Oh, is it really? Okay, nice.
Look at the hat sticking towards the tree topper.
Okay.
All right, right on. That's cool. It's a little hard to see from there, but yeah, I gotcha. That's cool. Okay, I have some questions. So, Cranky Kong was the original Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong Jr. is his son. And we know that the new Donkey Kong is his grandson.
Okay.
So does that mean that he's Donkey Kong Jr.'s son? Or, I mean, it doesn't necessarily follow. He could be from the son of, someone else, another child that we've never met. But I think it's a safe assumption to think that maybe it's Junior's son.
Yeah, so he's the third.
So he would be Donkey Kong the third, yeah.
Trip. call him Trip, yeah.
Trey, we'll call him Trey.
Love it.
DK Trey. One of my favorite things about the game, and I want to get back to the game because the episode was fun. It was good, whatever. But so the game, especially Donkey Kong Country, the mechanics of it, how you could, if you were Diddy, you could hop on, Donkey Kong's back, and just little things like that. You could be thrown later on when you start getting the Wii and all those games of 64. There was just so many more things you could do. Dixie, her hair would spin. You could kind of float a little bit.
Oh yeah,
which is super cool. Not Junior, Diddy being a spider monkey, you could climb a little bit better or jump a little higher.
Yep.
There was just so many fun things. Did you ever complete 100% any of those games?
So all the Donkey Kong countries, my friends and I we did all of them. But this was years later. I think we were in college and we were like, what we never did? So we did that, and then we did Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link. We did that.
Wow, that's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I love it. And then Diddy Kong Racing. That is my jam. I've got my 64 literally within reach. I'll boot it up. We will play right now.
Right on.
and I will work both of you in that game. I know that game inside and out. I love it.
I believe it. So I am like,
I'll give you a few laps.
I am ridiculously good at Mega Man and fighting games, but like anything else, I'm terrible at. Driving games, I'm bad at. But it's funny because that one didn't get as much play as Mario Kart. Mario Kart seems to be the thing. So Nintendo really took Mario from that first Donkey Kong game and kind of just made him their spokesman.
Yep.
And so everything is just Mario. Even though you're right, there's like a lot of these games that are so much fun. I haven't tried that the last one from a few years ago, the what was it, like the Big Freeze or something?
Tropical Freeze.
Tropical Freeze, yeah.
Those are fun. They're fun. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, they don't have the same nostalgia feel.
Yeah, you don't have this exactly. You don't get the same feel. I mean, but to me, Diddy Kong Racing was better than Mario Kart because it was something different. Like you're racing the stages and all that. It's way different than what Mario Kart had, and it's something that they could still adapt to, nowadays.
Easy.
And they just dropped the concept.
Yep. And part of that too was the split with Rare going with Microsoft. When Microsoft acquired Rare, they acquired all the characters except for the Diddy Kong family. So all those characters went with them, and so they couldn't and that's why it was such a huge pain, because they couldn't do a sequel, and then they re-released it for the I think the DS, but it was a little different, and there was like a weird mechanic where you blew into the DS to make your plane go or something. It was very weird.
So maybe that's why they really just started pushing Mario Kart instead. I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But here's the funny thing: Microsoft and Nintendo have a sort of an agreement now. So
yeah, they seem to like each other again. So
all business.
Because Microsoft doesn't want to come out with a handheld game.
Yeah.
So they want to focus their handheld division, instead of being a mobile division, they want to focus for games on the Nintendo Switch. So
I get it.
I could see it.
Yeah. Yeah. Switch is pretty popular until the next thing comes out.
I have a few of those Switches, different colors and stuff. So
right on.
I dig it.
Yeah. So one thing I never super got into was Nintendo 64. So I kind of stopped really around the 32X.
Sure.
Just because I was in band, I was in, I had internships going on. And then by the time I got to college, I couldn't afford my own consoles. So it wasn't until later when the Wii came out that I got a Wii and then the Wii U and now, of course, the Switch. So I'm still playing catch up on a lot of these games. But like the classic Donkey Kong and, Donkey Kong Country, that whole series, I mean, they're just fantastic. And, you got to get all the coins and
Oh, yeah.
The Kong in some of those games.
All the letters, yeah.
You got to get the letters. Yep.
So fun. And the hidden items, the Easter eggs and stuff. Rare was really good about that, I will say. In most of their games that Rare makes, they have Easter eggs. It's the same in so they made like 007 GoldenEye, right?
Oh,
so,
right. Oh, man,
so they had all the Easter eggs, all the hidden items, the like hidden areas. So fun. And that's the other thing now is we don't get games that are fully made anymore. Like there's always DLC that you have to purchase later. Right. And they release patches because there's, the games
so many
there's
bugs.
broken things. Yeah. So, and part of that is the nature of it. There's, games are more complex and larger but give me a game that's fully made that I don't need the internet for, and I'll play it. I'd love it. Right.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be graphically intensive. I love old games. So
I'm right there with you. Exactly. And
hours.
What'd you say?
I could do Tetris for hours.
Same. Yeah, Tetris is great. Tetris, Dr. Mario, those old puzzle games. Bubble Bobble.
Yeah. Nice.
So we got the Nintendo Mini when it released, and my wife calls it the pill game because that's what her mom referred to it, and we played for hours. Like that thing, we just played for hours with like the little.
Right.
I don't know, short cords just right there by the TV. I mean, that brought out, the feelings from back in the day. So.
Oh, for sure.
Right on. But it does make me wonder, what would you guys say would be your happiest memory or moment of Donkey Kong?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think for me, it was probably skate night. So I have cousins that are about 10 years older than me.
Right.
And a lot of times they would be at the skating rink because at the time it wasn't like uncool for teenagers to be there. Right. So,
right.
So my cousins would be there and my older cousin would play Donkey Kong and I'd be, like second grade, third grade or whatever, and go in and I'd, have a quarter or two and play and just the fun. And, you have like the group of people around the arcade watching somebody cheering them on and trying to beat your cousin's high school. If you could ever beat your 10-year older cousin at a game, it was the best. So that, I would say that was my happiest memory. I love it.
That's a time to brag for sure.
Exactly. Yeah.
What about you, Manny?
In this case, I was the middle cousin, and from Super Nintendo to Nintendo 64, the Donkey Kong was a colored cartridge, yellow if I'm not wrong. And my cousins, like my older and my younger cousin, we all got it at the same time, and just having that different colored cartridge, like it was freaking awesome. When we had people over, they didn't care what game it was; they just wanted that cartridge, just there. And just going back, then to the things that I was imagining or whatever, and you're explaining at the beginning of the episode, like the whole family line and all that, because I mean, right there, you're just wondering, like, is this the same Donkey Kong from the arcade? Is this the same Donkey Kong from the pizza? Like, it's come a long way.
Right.
So there's a lot of different memories there, but just that, to me, it was a color cartridge for Nintendo 64. Like, that was, it stood out. So.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Well, and that kind of goes back to that, like, Legend of Zelda, like, golden cartridge.
Yep. They had the gold cartridge. There was a couple blue cartridges like Madden 99 and The World Is Not Enough, I think, had one, the second or third 007 game. Seeing if I have it out. I don't think I have it out on the shelf, but I've got quite a few.
It's awesome. One of these days we gotta get together because I'm excited to play some of those games.
Heck yeah, man.
Sorry for inviting myself over, but that's
please do. I mean, you got to hike out to the country because I live in the boonies, but
it's okay.
but
hey, it's worth it.
It is, yeah.
But I'll bring pizza. How about that?
Sounds great. Yeah.
All right. But for me, I think my happiest memory was just going to the arcade in the mall and seeing the big cabinet there, and just I don't know, there was something special about that particular game. And like I said, I liked Pac-Man. I liked playing some of these other games, but that one was just I could get it. And even though I wasn't the best at it, like I was still better than I was at all the other games. So immediately that just upped it in its rankings, I think. It completely increased it, yeah, its level. But yeah, I mean I remember just spending hours in there while my parents shopped.
Yep.
And so it was so cool. But now we come to my favorite part of the show, which is a little segment I like to call Gag Me with a Spoon. So this is where we do our best impression of our least favorite part of the episode. And so as the guests, I'll let you go first. Just kind of set up the scene a little bit for us.
Manny, you want to jump in or you want me to go?
Yeah, I'll go first for the first time, Jay, or so, you know.
What? All right, I'm writing this down.
Okay, this is the scene when they're doing this whole chase and everything, and they go into their gift wrapping place, and he grabs the gift wrap, and he's like, "Let's wrap these presents." I mean, what else can you do like that?
True. That's
I mean, the whole episode is a gag me with a spoon, but like,
yeah, I got you. Okay, what about you, Jeff?
So I'm going to go back. I already said it once because it drove me bonkers, but I'm going to go back to the very beginning of the show. I'm carrying the motorcycle. Oh, we're in a city. We didn't see it. We didn't see us approach the city for miles, right? But suddenly we're in it, right? There's no real reason. We didn't crest a hill. We didn't cross a river. Here we are.
Oh man, so it's good. Mine is so it's at the very end actually when Santa's coming and Bert tells Waldo, that hey, it really is the real Santa. And Waldo, I'm gonna try to do my best Waldo voice here, but he says, "Who cares? When I was a kid, he never brought me the fire engine I wanted." The reason I didn't like this one was, of course. Well, then you were naughty if you didn't get it, of course. That's why you became a hobo. So. Oh, man. But, I got to ask. So G.I. Joe taught us that knowing is half the battle. What do you think the other half is?
Knowing how to use the toy maker machine.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I would say the other half of the battle is understanding how to stop time. So you can save both aspiring hobos and a toy machine. So
that's good.
So now I have a question, Jerry. Were those expandable wreaths something that was back in the 80s? Because I have to buy different size wreaths every time I'm going to put them,
That's a good point. Do you sell expandable wreaths?
We don't sell expandable wreaths. No. Only
I was trying to get to that question. I was just trying to
we only have them for monkeys that try to save other people.
That's unfortunate. It seems like you're missing a market there.
The expandable, I'm going to sell them to police officers and firefighters and first responders, just anyone that could use them to save other people.
That's right.
So those are both better than mine. I thought if knowing is half the battle, the other half is just getting Frank Welker to voice your character.
I mean, you can't go wrong with that. Let's be honest, right?
Exactly. Oh man, guys, it's been fun talking Donkey Kong and Donkey Kong Jr. But tell me about your shows. Why don't we start with you, Jeff?
Sure. So I host the Lost Christmas podcast, and I talk about the history of Christmas, kind of the lost traditions and the beginnings of traditions, kind of where all of our history comes from. And this season 3, I'm calling the season of Santa. I'm really digging deep into Santa Clauses around the world, the histories, and you can learn all about different Santas around the world, kind of all the gift givers that we love that we don't maybe know.
Right on.
Yeah.
I think most people don't know, let's see, what is it? I don't know if I'm pronouncing this correctly, but Jet Morosh?
Jet Morosh, yeah. Yes. Grandfather Frost. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. I had an episode about him last season and the Snow Maiden.
Oh yeah.
Snegoroshka. But there's so much. It's a big world.
It really is.
It's a big world. And we share a lot of similarities with places around the world too. So
Right on. Definitely go check it out. Where can they find you?
Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, pretty much any major podcast network.
Cool. And social media?
So I'll be posting my first Instagram picture. I know I'm super behind, but I've got
That's okay.
I've got Facebook and Twitter. Follow us on there, and look for me on Instagram. I'll be posting and updating there too.
Very cool. What about you, Manny?
All right. Well, I've been here a few times before, but yes, my podcast is Feliz Christmas, Merry Navidad. This year, I'm trying to tackle the whole imaginary stuff, going back and forth to the North Pole for younger listeners, while also trying to send a message of trying to do something good for somebody else, especially in the times that we're living in right now, just to step away from the movies. And, that's what all the other podcasts, just to be a little different. And
yep.
You could find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at FCMN Podcast. And now YouTube has handles. So now I officially have my YouTube channel, which is at FCMN Podcast as well. Awesome. So my handle is the same one throughout everything. And you can listen to us on any podcast platform. I keep looking online and keep finding my episodes there. So I am pretty happy. And,
That's awesome.
Yeah, you always, and the direction seems to be people listen to me on these episodes and then they go to mine because that's usually when Jerry drops it, like the next few days, I'm getting more listens. And
that's awesome. That's great.
That's good, man. I'm glad.
Non-paid promotion, right, Jerry?
Hey, I just like talking to people, but whatever. Yeah. I mean, if it helps, that's even better. So
it helps.
Jerry's the podfather, right?
Leave the gun. Take the.
Oh, by the way, I found a blue cartridge.
Oh, that's nice.
So, I knew I had one. I had to reach for it.
That's awesome. Oh man, that's so good. But definitely check out both those shows. Lost Christmas is super informative and awesome. And Feliz Christmas, Merry Navidad. You can hear all about how Manny went to Walmart with COVID. And I'm just kidding. But you can find out some really cool stuff there too, and it's always fun. But let me just say one more time. Thank you guys so much. This was a lot of fun.
This was great.
And I
enjoyed
it by saying, gosh, did you hear? That's Santa Claus. Mr. Anderson really is Santa's helper. So check us out on our social media pages, Facebook and Instagram at Totally Rad Christmas, Twitter at Rad Christmas, or our Facebook group, Totally Rad Christmas Mall and Arcade, where you can make your voice known to us as well. We post anything and everything 80s or Christmas related. And if you're feeling like Junior saving the day, leave us a review on iTunes. It helps us reach more people and spread some rad holiday cheer. Now, don't forget to check out our merch shop on tpublic.com and our super dope website, totallyradchristmas.com, courtesy of Tis the Podcast elf, Tom Crow. Merry Christmas, Bones. Later, dudes.
Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night.